like a little shorter. Hi,
Hi,
Dr. Valerie Fredrickson. How are you doing?
I'm great, honey. How are you? I just got back. I took my mom back east for my godmother's memorial service. She passed away from ovarian cancer, so that's another thing that we should talk about at some point. Just
Well,
because it's good for people to know as they age some of the signs of these major cancers that can have an impact, but it's less about the cancer and more about just being around. When you celebrate a person's life, it's such a beautiful thing.
it is. We are talking about artificial sweeteners
Oh, great.
and that's what we're talking about.
And if
Which
you
brings
eat
us
too
right to
many
the ovarian
artificial
cancer.
sweeteners, you're going to end up having a celebration of your life earlier than you should.
Well, some of them are worse than others. So aspartame in particular just came out to be classified as a class 2B potential carcinogen.
Isn't that crazy? It used to
Aspartame's in
be, I
a
mean,
lot of
it's been
things.
put in so many things, and people just they just give it to people on the table, to put in their drinks at diners and right? That's like
Mhm.
NutraSweet.
It's in a lot of products. So,
Mm.
you know how I'm a little strange about ingredients, and I want it to be as clean as possible. And at one point, I was wanting to not have my patients have to be on antihistamines that have food dyes in them. So then
Mhm.
I'm in a pharmacy and I'm looking through them all, and I find a brand that I really like their antihistamine, but their child, and there's dyes in all of them. And I'm thinking, hey, people are going to have to take this every day. Maybe I can find one without the dye. Maybe the chewable's better. Maybe the everything. So I'm looking at all the forms. The children's one had aspartame in it. So it's an antihistamine, which commonly is used every single day. And the children's form, because it was a chewable, they thought they had to make it, taste appealing to a child, had aspartame in it. Now it didn't have the dyes, but then it had aspartame. And I was like, absolutely, we're just going to stick with the regular one with the dyes because that's not something we want. And then if you look at that class of carcinogens, so I'm like, what else is in this class of carcinogens or potential carcinogens? And what you just said about the ovarian cancer, remember how talc powder came out to be a potential cause?
Oh my God,
There was
the
a big
Johnsons and
loss.
Johnsons baby powder that I literally, growing up in Las Vegas in the ballet, we used to just have big bottles of it because it was hot. And you just literally like douse your vaginal vagina, like your arms to just so that moisture was absorbed. I mean, for years.
And that's the same, and it smells good, that stuff too. I still
It
like
kind of
it.
does. You feel like refreshed,
I
like
like the
whoop,
smell.
whoop. And
But that's the same category as this 2B is the perennial use. They don't say vagina as much as you do, which is unfortunate, but perennial use of the talc-based powders is on that list. Another thing is marine diesel fuel. You ever go and, any marina power boats, they smell so strong. You're like, ooh, I don't want to smell that. That is in this category along with engine exhaust. So, and aspartame is now in that category. So that's very interesting to look at and think about what are we putting in our bodies as far as these artificial sweeteners and why are we using them?
so I
So
think one of the things that I see a lot, like my kids, my patients, I'd say with the soda, I mean, diet soda is the biggest thing. So Diet Coke, diet soda, this is what's in it. This is what's been in it for years. And I remember like the corporate culture, we used to be like, you could just drink Diet Cokes for free kind of a thing. Like,
yes.
like you could just, and Diet Coke was caffeinated and it didn't make you fat. And you
Mhm.
could just have 4 of them in a day because
Mhm.
it's just Diet Coke. There was this real like mentality. And I remember my first detox that I ran, I got Dave, my ex-husband, off Diet Coke because it was just like, dude, you're addicted to this thing that's like really crazy. So my kids don't necessarily drink a lot of the diet sodas, but you know what they do is the gum. So gum, sugar-free gum is full of aspartame, like Trident. I'm pretty sure all those brands of gum. And so you're literally chewing. And I
Mhm.
do it when I get in their cars. My kids have tons of gum in their cars. It's like some things moms can't control when they're teenagers or like driving and they have their own money. And so they have these like big ass packs of gum and they're
Mhm.
chewing it all the time. And you just don't,
Yeah.
when I stop and say it to them, they look at me like I'm so crazy, like,
Mhm.
whatever, mom, they would never have a product on the market that like is going to cause cancer for us. And I'm like,
Mhm. I know. And then the other thing, the gums, the xylitol gum, if you're going to have one, I kind of like because it has all that data for anti-cavities and things. But those sugar alcohols is our next category we want to talk about because these are somewhat natural substances, these sugar alcohols, and you can identify them because they usually end in an OL. So that's the erythritol, mannitol, sorbitol. You'll see those things in sugar-free products or low sugar products. And the only one of those I think has any sort of health benefit in my mind is the xylitol because of the dental protection it may give you. But you don't want to have more than a piece of that gum every once in a while. You're not putting it in a lot of things. And I wonder how many of my patients have presented with abdominal pain and bloating, and it's because their bar they have at breakfast or some powder they're using in their shakes has one of these sugar alcohols in there because those are very well established to cause GI distress. And it's one of these things that we're talking about all the time is why are people's GI systems and microbiomes completely messed up? It could be all these sugar alcohols that we think are somewhat, they seem safer than aspartame, but they're causing people a lot of problems.
so, what about, do your kids do the sugar-free gum?
Um,
Or do they
I'm
do
not really
xylitol
sure.
gum?
I
Like,
don't
I
know.
feel like xylitol gum's hard. That one's been a hard one for me to get with my kids. But so the other thing, can we talk about another thing that there's a lot of aspartames, like NutraSweet equal Jello. So like there's like sugar-free, anytime where it's like sugar-free and you
Sugar-free.
think you're winning, you're really
Mhm.
not winning there
No.
because you're getting a cancer causing ingredient.
Well, it's also, let's think about what we're doing because you and I are trying to get people off sugar all the time. And we don't want the high sugar rise. So we don't want that in our bloodstream. We don't want glucose to spike. So people still want to eat something sweet. So are they trying to get rid of the sugar craving? Is that why we're using these things? So it's more like, why are we using these things and what's going on?
Well, I
What's
think for diet soda, people use it because they don't want to get fat,
Mhm.
right? I mean, isn't that where it comes from? That
Yes, but they also, you could have like a sparkling beverage that's delicious, like a grapefruit flavor
I mean,
sparkling,
100%, or like what
and
you
there's
do,
no
right?
sugar in it.
When you
You
do
just have to
fresh
get used to
citrus.
it, right?
Like I said, I think there's this mentality from when it came out and when it was marketed, like it's like a free food kind of like, do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't
Mhm,
count for anything. You can drink it and it's 0 calorie, it's zero
mhm,
whatever. So like that's the way I look at sparkling water,
mhm,
where I'm like, delicious. It's like effervescent and it makes me happy and it makes me feel like I'm having a beverage, but it's
mhm,
sparkling water. Is it as good for me as drinking water? No. But it's like, and I think so many people think about Diet Dr. Pepper, Diet Coke,
mhm,
that it's more like they're not having a soda, they're
mhm.
having a Diet Coke. Like it was brilliant marketing. I watched my friends for years do that. Some of my really smart friends, and I'm like, you guys, that's like there's stuff in it. Like you're drinking like a chemical.
Mhm, and there's caramel color in there too that we also think could be potentially cancer causing too. But it's hard because we're just used to it. So one way to get off it is doing a kombucha or something bubbly. Like I think there's something to the bubble. I really like to have a bubble drink in the afternoon. I really appreciate that. And I just don't get the ones that has sugar or any of these artificial sugars in them because I like a good citrus flavor or something like that to it. But they have really amazing ones these days. But you really have to look at the ingredients because a lot of the drinks, people know they're not supposed to have sugar in the drinks. Like we know that we're not supposed to have sugary drinks. That's definitely something we know. But these things are causing people so many issues that it's kind of surprising, right? So how do we cut down on these essentially sugar cravings because it does still satisfy a sugar craving, that sweet taste.
Well, and I think they perpetuate the desire for sweetness,
Right.
right? Because you're getting it, it's sweet, and then you want more sweet. And um, so can we just say, like, nobody should be putting a packet of Sweet and Low, like, this is not the 80s. You don't put the packets of that, like, sugar substitution
There's like the
powder.
pink one, the blue one, the yellow one.
The yellow one, the pink
None of
one.
those. None of
You
those.
just never do that. If
Just
you're
never.
gonna drink coffee at a diner, drink it because it's bitter and it's good for you.
Mhm.
Stop with the sugar and stop with the sugar things. And then diet soda, to me, should just be replaced. Now, we should do a whole show on all the different types of, there's a lot of problems with some of the bubbly waters. It's just,
Right.
this is what it is, you guys. It's a bummer, and I feel like a total buzzkill.
Yeah, you
And
make the
you
best choices.
what?
You just make the best choices you can in these situations. Like often if I have to go into a convenience store or I have to get a drink out, I'll look for the unsweetened iced tea because I really like those. And often they'll have green tea ones or black tea ones, and they're actually really, really good. And so if they have that, that would be just my very favorite choice for people, because then you get the antioxidants in there. But I just had a patient who's doing a long drive. They're moving across the country, and the discussion was, you're going to have to pack up your drinks in glass bottles, go get cases, go to the stores, get cases of the glass bottles and pack them in the car, because when you're out and about and you just have to stop in to get drinks, you often don't have really good choices, and sometimes making health choices that create really good longevity. And I always want to give people room for cheating here and there and enjoying time with friends and not being so strict about things, but sometimes having like a really strict rule on just, I'm not drinking out of the plastic, or I'm not having any of these sugar alcohols. I mean, I'm definitely not having aspartame. Just a really strict rule, if that's like a no and I can't have it, is the way to go. If you go through the list of things for health, this is a really big one. This could have a huge impact on your health.
I bet I bought Altoids and had some this weekend in my bag. I bet they have aspartame, right?
I don't think so, actually. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. But it's true. You have to look at all the little ingredients, and then it makes you a bit like, oh, come on, what's going on here? But this is one that might be really good for a very strict, like a rule.
No, I guess it's for everything. It's just when it says sugar-free. So just
sugar-free, low sugar, those things are tricky. And these are
things so tricky for parents because they don't want their kids to get cavities. Mm-hmm. So like the sugar-free gums are just such the thing that you hand kids, because it's like, oh, if the kid wants gum, like obviously we don't want them to eat like juicy fruit, right? Like, or, Hubba Bubba.
No, Altoids have good ingredients. Sugar. I would honestly rather have the sugar than one of these other ingredients, to tell you the truth. I really would. And so it's sugar, I guess, and Altoids. Thank you. We have an assistant who's helping us here. I think that the other thing to consider is, you would think, okay, the erythritol or mannitol or maltitol, all those things, if you see those ingredients, you might think those are better choices, but here's the issue with those ones. And it is something to consider being strict about, because we are finding that our GI systems are the root of all health. And we were taught that in naturopathic medicine school. I will absolutely say that our founders really understood that, and the older physicians who were so generous with their knowledge with us always brought us back to the GI system, and they were completely right. And one of the problems is those things are supposed to be absorbed in our small intestines in small quantities if they're natural in foods, but our bodies can't do it. And so then they go on, these sugars go on to the large intestine, and that's where they're not supposed to be there, right? So in natural foods, they would just get whatever there would get absorbed in your small intestine. It wouldn't get passed on to your large intestine. But our bodies can't do that. And so now our large intestine, where all our gut flora, our gut bacteria, our microbiome are interacting with these sugar alcohols, they don't know what to do. So all of a sudden, then you have a lot of gas, bloating, stomach pain. And then people are ending up at the gastroenterologist, and they're ending up having to take I don't know, all these over-the-counter things for their GI systems. We're thinking, do they have small intestine bacterial overgrowth? And we're doing all these really extensive testing, and we're doing all these things. And in reality, it's the sorbitol that they're having every day in whatever this thing is that they're eating that they think is just totally normal, healthy food. So these ingredients have long-term consequences. With the back to a few shows ago when we were talking about my poor daughter with the maltodextrin problem.
Right.
I mean, it is incredibly
Incredible how severe,
shocking
right?
how many things that stuff is in. And if she's reacting to it, which she doesn't like really have any other things going on, if she's reacting to it, how many other people are? I've never heard of anyone actually reacting to that as of yet. And neither have any of the doctors I've talked to about it. So I just know that so many people's GI issues are these extra ingredients, and we need to go back to not packaged food. You know, we need to go back to, like, remember when we used to have the spray of the essential oils hill? We need to go back to just having that in our bag, you know, like when we were like first dating or eons ago, you know what I mean? Not us.
You knew when we were first dating?
Everybody went around and they had those, right? When
What
you
about like Banaka
had the spray
or
thing.
something? Yeah.
That was like a thing.
Can I just say, it's a random segue, but today is my daughter's 20th birthday. I have a 20-year-old child.
Yeah. So way back before we had electricity and you were dating, you would go around with one of those spray things instead of an Altoid.
That's so funny. Yeah.
But the Altoids are fine. They're just sugar. I honestly would rather just have sugar if I have to have anything like that than these other ingredients. You know?
Well, okay, so you need to run and help your child, and
Yes.
I am going to go make a low sugar birthday cake for my child, because I have found that if I take a recipe, like I love like Ina Garden's cooking or whatever, and I literally cut the sugar in half on a cake, it still tastes totally sweet and delicious, and it doesn't actually hurt. So we're going to do a little cake making around here.
Good plan. Have a good one.
Yeah. Bye, you guys.
Bye.